Hello there. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to ask a short favor. If you're interested in either of the two books that I have written and am about to release, head on over to my website at theanxioustruth.com/books. There you can learn about both books, one of which is free, and you can get on my mailing list to be notified when each book is released and how you can get it. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's get rolling. All right, what's up, dudes and dudettes? Drew here, that anxiety guy again.com website. Joined again with my buddy Joe Ryan sitting across the table from me.
Hey, Drew.
What up, dude? I'm not going to lie, we just recorded one like a half hour ago.
Right.
So it's not like this is a new day or anything like that, but that's all right.
Still wearing the same clothes.
And still wearing the same clothes. And also joined by whoever happens to be watching us on Instagram. So we're streaming this live on Instagram. So it's at that_anxiety_guy is my Instagram account. We're streaming while we record. So it's a little experiment. People will watch us record as we go. Anyway, so the last time that Joe and I talked, we talked about how trauma and pain and anxiety don't have to ruin every day. Right? And how you've learned that and how you make that work. So today, or now, we're going to talk about how competence and competency have played a role in how you've learned to deal with anxiety and panic and past trauma and that sort of stuff. And we've talked about this, right?
We have. This is a tough topic.
Yeah, it's a big deal, I know. So I guess we'll get into it. One of the things that I run into all the time with the people who are listening to the podcast or in the Facebook group, and if you're not in the Facebook group, there'll be a link on the page to join, is this feeling that they want to get better, they want to recover, they want to do the work, they want to do all those things, but they're almost afraid. They're afraid of a lot of things. They're afraid that, like, are they even allowed to make these decisions because they've been conditioned to say you're not allowed to decide what to do?
Right.
And more than anything else, there's the constant worry of, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Because they're just concerned that they're going to mess it up. And not only they're going to mess it up and do it wrong and hinder their own recovery, but they're going to ruin things for the people around them.
Right.
And I know you had a lot to say about this when we have these conversations.
It's the whole perfectionist thing. So, I can't leave the house unless I'm going to do everything perfect. So therefore, I don't leave the house, And it's the judgment. And you take on responsibility for others. You watch what you say, you watch what you do, your path in life. It's almost like you're kind of trying to figure out what's going to please everybody. Mm-hmm. And as you're doing that, you accomplish absolutely nothing.
Right, because you're just worried about ruining everybody else's day. Let's talk about that a little bit, because
Okay.
I've heard this a lot. People that want to go into situations where they want to go to the family function, they want to go to dinner, they want to go to the movie with their husband or wife. They're afraid that, like, well, if I do it wrong and I start to have anxiety or panic, I'm going to ruin everything for everybody. Like, they're somehow thinking they're responsible for ruining everybody's day.
Right. You take on, I say it all the time, you take on a role. I took on a role when I grew up that I had to be the nice guy, people pleaser, couldn't upset anybody or anything. So before you have an event with family or friends or anything, it's almost like you have to armor up and gear up and get yourself emotionally ready to kind of just be on guard, not be perfect, in a sense. So if you're not feeling good, you're a little off, emotionally you're not right, you're not going to want to do it. You have to feel perfect and strong and confident, but your confidence is false. It's like a false confidence. You have no confidence because if you did, you wouldn't have to create this false self to leave the house.
That does make sense. And I hear it all the time, people that this lack of confidence or self-doubt, or there's either just inherent self-doubt because they've been told for a very long time, you're never going to be able to do this.
Right.
Or there's the other thing that says, I might ruin everybody's day or ruin the event. But that underlying self-doubt, like, I'm going to do this wrong. There's no way I'm going to get this. This is a hard thing I have to do, so there's no chance that I can get this.
It's either you do it perfect or you don't do it. There's no in between. So it's extremes, and somehow we take on responsibility of other people's needs and feelings, whether it's real or not. We internalize that, and it's not like a selfish, self-centered thing. It's a fear of, I guess, shame, being exposed for not being perfect because, like, you can't handle that judgment against you.
Right.
Shame is such a tough thing. It's kind of like the silent killer. It keeps you isolated and it keeps you alone and it keeps you it keeps you from living, because it's not, I always felt like I didn't make mistakes. I just felt like I was a mistake. So I went through my entire life covering the fact that I felt like a mistake.
Right.
So I put on this false self to cover the shame of not feeling good enough.
Which is, I can't imagine what
exhausting.
It feels like. Yeah, to go through life having that feeling like I'm just automatically going to screw this up. I'm not automatically not good enough.
I've screwed it up before I left the house.
Yeah.
So to leave the house, you really have to get yourself in this mental state, because I couldn't handle being anything less than perfect.
Right. Now, I know that there were some issues that sort of led to that, being conditioned to feel like, you know, if you mess up, there's going to be consequences here.
Right.
Right. And we don't have to go down that road, which is okay. But I'm sure people could, relate that are possibly listening or watching on Instagram. I hope it's still working.
Yeah,
I have no
know.
idea if it's still working. We can't look at the phone and do this. But anyway, so just living with that on a day-to-day basis when you have to go to school or work or be a parent or go to family functions or social events must be hard enough.
It uses a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to go out in public when you're trying to hide and cover who you are. So, I always say I'm like spontaneously agoraphobic. I just want to stay in and recharge my energy. And then when I feel confident and good, I want to pop out, and I need everybody to be available when I'm ready, because now I'm ready to have a good time, and I'll deplete my energy quick, and then I got to go back and hide.
Okay, I get it.
So when you start to kind of peel away all of that mask and you start to be who you are and you get more confident with yourself, when you go out, you don't worry about being perfect as much, and you use a lot less energy, so you don't really need to go and recharge. But the anxiety and the panic of being exposed publicly is a lot to handle, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you got to live with that sort of stuff just on a daily basis and just living life, I can't imagine, to relate it back to, the people that I deal with all the time, now you have to intentionally do something that you already know is really hard.
Right.
That you have to learn a new skill, the skill of just floating through those feelings and not letting them grip you and all those things. It seems so daunting to them, I think. Like, now, this is a thing I know is hard to do. How the hell am I going to possibly do this thing?
And I think it compounds if you don't feel good about who you are and you're a perfectionist because of that. When you have the anxiety and the feelings, to kind of have to admit that you aren't perfect to yourself, to have to sit with the feelings. Like, you're watching people who go out in the world and function perfectly, or at least it seems to be from your perspective.
Right.
And you're the guy that's like, no, I got to go home at 9:30 because the panic attack is setting into 10:15. And then that just compounds those feelings of feeling worse. It's like this endless spiral. What happened to me wasn't my fault. The way my life worked out, it just happened.
Yeah.
My anxiety is not, I'm not creating it. Your body does. So, but it's not you. I think I just need to detach myself from the anxiety as being a part of who I am.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not my identity.
Right.
It's just, if you break your leg, you're walking with a crutch. It's just that's what you have to do. You have anxiety, you have to just do certain things that other people may not have to do to feel better and get through the day.
Which makes all kinds of sense. So how do you get past that voice? So it's amazing to me. And the reason why we're talking to Joe about this is you've spent, if you didn't listen to the first episode with Joe, like, you've spent years and years and years dealing with these things.
Forever.
And working with them, through them yourself. So how do you deal with that? I mean, that perfectionism thing that says, well, if you didn't do it right, there were consequences, so now I must be perfect.
Right.
And I've heard people say that, but then when I see, like, I'm anxious, I'm having a panic attack, I'm obviously not perfect.
Right.
So there's so many voices screaming in your head, I'm guessing.
It's like, shut up.
Right. I'm not perfect. I'm going to screw it up. I'm not good enough. I'm not, all those things.
A lot of it comes down to forgiving yourself. I've always been very hard on myself when I couldn't do things right. Just had these negative voices in my head. You're stupid. You're not smart. You're worthless. Forgiving yourself for making mistakes, and I keep saying, coming out of hiding, coming out of your shame, being vulnerable with somebody else, making a mistake, and people will be like, no, it's all right, no big deal, but you don't believe it. You're like, they're lying to me. It's not okay. They hate me because I screwed up.
Yeah.
You're kind of in a trance or in your own little world and thoughts in your head, and you're not really present to what is being presented to you because you're looking through the eyes of the past,
right,
of your past experiences. When somebody tells you in the present, listen, it's okay, you made the mistake. In your head, you're like, no, it's not. I know it's not okay.
Right.
And it's hard to get over that. And I think just going back and just feeling those negative feelings and those negative thoughts and being compassionate and understanding of yourself, it is so helpful. I can't stress enough, forgiving of yourself has been a major part of it, where I make mistakes now and I don't beat myself up for hours, days, weeks, months, years.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, listen, that happened. You need to emotionally let that go, because if not, I've held on to every mistake in my life. I'm 3,000 pounds emotionally.
Yeah.
Letting go and forgiving myself and getting rid of that negative emotion has freed me up to start looking forward instead of living in the past, and accepting the anxiety and the panic and all the bad feelings in the present and finding a way to deal with them better.
So I'm guessing that, and again, from the last episode, if you didn't listen, there's the tremendous amount of progress in the last 12 months.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's tremendous. It's
It
a
is.
complete, like you're a totally different person now. It's really astounding. And I think, how has that, do you feel more competent and confident? You look like you feel more competent and confident now.
I do. A lot of it has been, just putting my writings out there and my feelings for other people to see. It's very hard I basically had to expose myself for who I was.
But to who? Exposing to you, or
Well, first
expose yourself to yourself?
I used to expose just to myself. I got a stack of notebooks of journals like this high at home that nobody's ever seen, and I never go back and read them. But it got to the point where I was able to expose myself to myself, and then expose myself to another human being. And now through social media, it's kind of like I mass expose myself. And every time I hit that button to hit post, sometimes it takes me a half an hour to push it because it's so revealing. And then as I've done it, now it's just kind of like, all right, click, let's move on.
I wonder if that's similar. Like we've seen, you're in Joe's in the Facebook group also.
Yes.
And like you see the proliferation of video now. Everybody's posting video, which I think is awesome. And to see the number of people who post video because they want to share it, but will say, this is so hard for me to do. I mean, some people are just shy and don't want to be on camera. I get that. But there's that feeling of like showing you me doing, the fact that you guys are going to see me do this seems to be such a weight for so many people.
I think the way we judge ourselves
Yeah.
is more critical than anybody else will ever judge us. So for me, it's like the whole world is going to judge me the way I used to judge myself.
Right.
Therefore, I can't handle my own judgment. So why would I put it out there and now have 7,000 people judging me just like I am? But what I ended up realizing was nobody's judging me the way I am except me. Nobody even cares enough to judge me that harshly. You know what I mean? People are just like, oh yeah, that was cute. Boom, boom, flip, flip. Like it's not like they're analyzing every word, every sentence.
Right.
I
think we talked about that even when I did my episode with Monique about you're not responsible for the happiness of everybody.
Right.
Which this sort of dovetails into that. I kind of said that. There have been people that I've said, well, what makes you think that you're that important that you can ruin, or like that people are going to spend so much time looking at that thing that you posted and said, oh, this is horrible.
I think if you lived in an environment where you were under a microscope and you were made to be responsible for other people's emotional well-being and happiness, like don't poke the bear, so you figured out how to become invisible.
Yep.
You take that on, that you have that much power, that the way you were angered these giants that were in your house, that you internalize it, that it made you feel like you had that much power, even though it's a complete weakness for living life.
Sure.
But that's how I think we interpret it, that we have this power over, we're responsible for other people's happiness and needs, because that's what we kind of grew up with.
Right.
And we just carry it forever. And to break that,
yeah.
My therapist gave me a thing and she said, I want you to read this every morning. You are not responsible for anybody else's needs ever.
Right.
and it's on my table. I get coffee in the morning. It's the first thing I see, and I've been looking at it for 9 months now, and it's starting to sink in. In fact, I think I want to get a rope and string and just hang it around.
Or like a harmonica thing, so it's always in your face.
Right.
The harmonica goes in front of you, so it's always...
I always felt like I should come with a warning label, so...
Not responsible for your feelings, bitches. Right. I get it.
Take care of your own crazy, I'll take care of mine.
That, which makes perfect sense. So I think, to bring some of that back, it's... so you've taken so many steps to go directly into the things that you fear and learn how to have those bad feelings without them dragging you around all day long. And have you had to see what you just talked about, where your therapist makes you read that every morning when you're not under pressure? Mm-hmm. So you've had to do a lot of work when you're not under pressure, so that when you are, like the reason why the Jets practice every week is so they know what to do during the game.
Even though they don't remember.
Right? Has that been a thing? I mean, the work that you've done when you're not in a panic, has it made a difference when the panic comes or the anxiety comes?
Yeah, I was always preparing. Everything was preparation. What if this happens? Like, I would go through this list in my head of any possible scenario that can cause panic, anxiety. I just needed to be prepared.
Okay.
Like, I didn't know how to protect myself instinctively because just of where I came from in that victim role.
Right.
So I used to prepare. Now you kind of go out, and I've noticed that situations have come up.
Okay.
And my body just handles it as it should. Sometimes not well. Sometimes I'll get the panic, but I deal with it. And other times, situations that would have put me into a panic where I would have to retreat within myself, I'm able to kind of stand my ground and just be, this is who I am, this is how I feel, and I'm able to do it without having to think about it.
Okay.
So it's practice, it's repetition.
Yeah, just like anything else we talk about.
Yeah.
If you're going to learn to get past panic and anxiety, you got to keep doing these things over and over. And
right.
You found the same thing even with dealing with some old pain and trauma. You just have to keep working it again.
I keep going back to certain events in my life that I go back either on my own. Like, my therapist is like, we're done with that one.
Yeah.
You cannot go back there in this office ever again. And I'm like, but now I'm comfortable there. Can we just keep going to the same one? And she's like, nope, on to the next. She goes, you want to do that, go do it at home. And sometimes, I feel like I need to go and just kind of meditate and get me to that place and feel those feelings, because I buried them and I pushed them away and I never wanted to access them. So if I can get to them within myself and feel it, it doesn't have the power. I desensitize from it.
That makes sense.
And it's the same with the anxiety. Like, you just kind of allow it, and the more you allow it, the more you pay attention as an observer. Instead of being in the conversation with the anxiety, you're just kind of watching the conversation from behind, and it's doing its own thing, and you're over here going, all right, let me know when you're done, and then I can get back to making dinner.
Yeah, it's all good. And then when you get into those situations, be it bad feelings that come up, I mean, so I guess the question I want to ask is, when the bad feelings come up, the bad memories, the bad thoughts, if they lead to anxiety, they lead to panic, do you feel more capable and confident to handle them now?
Absolutely.
Are the voices less? You're going to screw this up. You're going to mess this up. You can't do this. You better be perfect. Don't get it wrong. Are they lower now?
They are lower, and sometimes I can't really hear them as much as I used to. Sometimes they're higher, and when they're higher, it's kind of like, okay, I know what this is.
Yeah.
It's an anxiety feeling. I don't have to stop what I'm doing and figure it out at that moment. I just realize that there's anxiety. It's coming from somewhere. If I have the time, I'll sit and try to process it that way. If I don't, I'll just keep walking. I'll keep working. I'll keep doing whatever. I'll keep talking, and I'll just kind of let it happen.
Yeah. And it passes, and you can always go back later and work on maybe whatever you thought it was.
Right.
I get it. So let's back up a second. So you have to, go back and do this thing. How do I ask this question correctly? So the therapist says, okay, we're done with that now. You're not going to do this in this office anymore. But when we're talking about feelings of competence and competency, lack of confidence that maybe comes from past conditioning, is it because, like you said, but I'm good at that now? Right. And I think what people do sometimes that listen to the podcast or watch the videos, they build an acceptable zone.
Right.
Like, okay, it's hard for me to get out of my house. I'm panicking at work. I'm panicking, blah, 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 doing these things. And they find ways to wiggle around it, sort of get around it, push it to the side, and they build the acceptable zone. And, well, this is where I'm good at this. Right. I can do this. And then when you ask them to like, yeah, but you really want to be able to go on vacation, so don't you want to try that? Oh, I don't want to do, Some of it is it's scary to push outside, and some of it I think is, yeah, but I found a place where I'm good at stuff. Don't make me go beyond that.
Right.
Yeah. Does that ring in a bell for you?
Oh, completely. But my world kept getting smaller, where it was like, I went to 6 places and that was it.
Yeah.
Because I was comfortable and confident there. What I ended up doing was I stopped doing a lot of the things that I was comfortable and felt good about and safe with, and I started just venturing out and trying new things and going to new places.
Right.
So I kind of stripped away the old comforts.
Right.
And I went to places that were uncomfortable. And what I found was if I had 5 things or places that made me feel okay and that was my comfort zone, I kept going to another one. Very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. It's not so uncomfortable.
Okay.
Now I had 6 things. Then I had 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, and I just kept going out and trying stuff. Some of the stuff I just didn't like.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
The stuff I did like that I found difficult to do,
right.
I just kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going. So that's it. So now I get comfortable with these 7 things. Now there's an 8th, and now there's a 9th. And the first 6, 7, 8, that's my foundation.
Yeah.
I don't want to limit my life anymore. So I'm constantly looking to move out and branch out to other things.
Right.
And I just feel now that like I'm really starting to live for the first time, and I can't wait to get out there and see the world.
So let's bring it back to, again, feeling not confident or not self-assured, or you've always been told that you're not good enough, can't do it. Were you able to, you're not really able to talk yourself out of that. You had to do these things. Like going out there into the discomfort and like, oh, I'm in the city by myself and I'm okay. That's what did it, or no?
Yeah, so I think it was John Bradshaw said you can't think your way into a right way of feeling. You have to act your way into a right way of being.
Oh, that's pretty brilliant.
I think I got it right.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I was the guy that read books, listens to tape, wrote, figure out how to plan. Never worked out.
Yeah.
Never got me anywhere. The only way that I was able to get to where I'm at is to walk through the fear, walk through the pain, walk through the panic, all that uncomfortableness. I just, what if somebody needs me? What if something happens? What if I'm doing something for myself and something goes haywire and people need me and I'm on my own?
Yeah.
Well, then all of a sudden I'm selfish. And then all the negative thoughts and the shame spiral comes. And then like I'm never going out again.
Yeah.
I just had to keep talking myself through it. Every time I did something new, I kept repeating it, and I would just talk myself through it. It's okay. You have the right to do this. You deserve to do this. This is something that you enjoy. And then after a while, you start those positive thoughts.
Yeah.
It just beats the crap out of those negative ones where they start going away. And
but the positive thoughts were accompanied by doing things.
You had to do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't sit and think my way through it.
Right. Couldn't write your way out of it. Couldn't think your way out of it. Couldn't therapy your way out of it. Couldn't any of those things. You got to do it.
You just have to do it. Start out as small as possible, and that will become your comfort zone, like you were saying.
Sure.
Don't stop there. You deserve to experience it all. Do not limit it to like just 3 things that you feel safe with. That's a good place to start.
Sure.
But just keep adding.
And that's the thing. And I think whether you are, and it all rolls in together. So if you're listening and you're trying to overcome agoraphobia or panic disorder and you're afraid to drive to the supermarket, you have to do it to learn to be unafraid. And if it's compounded by the voices in your head because for whatever reason you were told through your whole life that you're not good enough to do good things or you're not competent, do them anyway, and you will prove to yourself through action that, oh, they were wrong. I can do these things. I can do these things.
It's time to parent yourself.
All right, there you go. You're probably resonating with so many people in a way that I'm unable to in many cases because of my lack of experience with that. But yeah, that's probably a big deal.
It is. And it's up to you now. Whatever happened before today, I can't let it limit my life. I just have to take today and do what I want to do and fight through that. It gets easier. The easiest analogy is when you go to the gym for the first time in 20 years, you're lifting the bar.
Right.
And that's way more than you can even handle. Go to the gym every day and you'll be doing 75 pounds in 2 months.
Right.
Well, it took me a lot longer to get 75 pounds. But
Easy enough.
But you just keep doing it and it becomes easier and to the point where you're not even going to think about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Maybe we should wrap it up. We're at almost 25 minutes. We'll wrap this up. Maybe what we'll do is wrap this up and then see if anybody has any comments.
Yeah,
we'll take questions.
That'd be cool.
All right,
Excellent.
So if you're still watching on Instagram, we're going to wrap up the podcast.
There may be nobody
there. Might be nobody there. This is the most embarrassing Instagram live ever.
There's one person watching.
Right,
and
exactly.
it's my mother.
But so before we wrap up the podcast, and of course, so you're listening to us down the road, we're not live on Instagram right now. It's going to be over.
Right.
But where can people find you if they want to hook up with you? Because you have a great Instagram account.
Thank you. Instagram is @JoeRyan, and my website is joeryan.com. That's pretty much all my social media.
Very good. And on the website, on my page on my website where this episode exists, I will link you there too, so you can find Joe that way as well.
Perfect.
If you have questions, there will be a link to get into the Facebook group. Joe's in the group. That's probably the way to do this. So either reach out to Joe directly and DM him on Instagram and have at it, or join the group and ask questions, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer.
Absolutely.
All right, another good one. This was cool.
This was great.
All right, so if you're on Instagram, chill, and we'll get back, and I'll jump around and look at the comments, and we'll see if we answer questions. For the rest of you that are just listening to the podcast, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
All right, later.
Let me go.
Hey, what's up, guys? Drew here. In the 5 years that I've done the podcast, I've never had a sponsor. But now it's time for me to put in a little plug for the day job, the business that I own. And that business is managed WordPress hosting. So if you have a website and it runs WordPress, and you'd like WordPress hosting that makes WordPress faster, more secure, and way easier than you ever imagined it would be, then check out Helix. You can find us online at imhelix.com. That's IAMHELIX.com. We took a long time to build Helix. I'm super proud of it. It works spectacularly. We take really good care of our customers, and I promise we would take really good care of you too. So if you're in the market for WordPress hosting that will blow your mind, check out Helix. I would appreciate the consideration. I thank you for coming by and listening, and I'll see you the next time.